Hey guys, Abraham Ovadia here. I'm at the 2024 John Romano Workhorse Seminar. I'm so excited to be here. I have an amazing attorney here. She's an incredible woman, lawyer, mother of two, speaker at the conference, and she kicks ass in the courtroom. And I saw her, something that really excited me about you was I saw you speaking in Tallahassee to fight against the House Bill 837 that got passed. And I saw you speaking and I said, oh my gosh, that was incredible, the speech that you gave. I think you did a couple, right?
Yeah, I testified a few times on different aspects of the bill and amendments in both the House side and the Senate side.
Yeah, and they were incredible. I think we put one of them up on our social media because I was like, this is gold. You were obviously, well-spoken, polished, but passionate about what you were talking about. And, these politicians don't care about that. But they care about this. Those guys are the biggest. I went there. It was like the last day you could donate money. And I went there. And they all had their hands out. This is like the Tallahassee handshake. It's like, hey, we'll talk. Let's talk. It's crazy. So anyways, tell us who you are, your name of your firm, and the practice areas that you handle.
All right. Well, my name is Michal Miller. I'm a partner at a law firm called Verplu and Marino. We are based in Miami. We also have an Orlando office and a Philadelphia office.
Ooh.
So I used to kind of split my time between Miami and Orlando, but then I had two kids, so that whole, on the road every day kind of died down a little bit. But I have a very niche practice. I only do insurance coverage and bad faith. So anytime an insurance company is on the other side of the V, I'm going to be involved in that case. I also do related cases like agent liability cases, legal malpractice cases that have to do with, claims handling where insurance companies hire lawyers. The lawyers don't do the right thing.
So like an example of that would be where there's a $10,000 policy. The plaintiff, injured person, says, hey, give me the $10,000. I have $1 million in debt from this accident. And the insurance company says, no, we're not going to give you the 10. And the insured gets sued. Yeah, so that's a typical.
Yeah, that's like a typical third-party bad faith case. So, I talk about bad faith, and when you talk to lawyers, they typically are like, oh yeah, I know what that is, but it's not super intuitive. So basically, insurance companies, you buy insurance because they're supposed to protect you. And so when there's an accident, you need that insurance company to step in to protect you, to be a professional, to investigate, to make sure that they shield you from being sued to begin with.
Okay.
And then you've got on the other side of that, the injured person, right? And they want a quick resolution. Nobody wants to be in a lawsuit for years. Nobody wants lawyers. Nobody wants any of this, right? We're here to serve a purpose, but the actual people involved in these accidents, they just want things handled the way it's supposed to go. And the way it's supposed to go is that an insurance company is supposed to quickly, with haste, with diligence, tender their policy limits, get a release of their insured. And especially where most people are not collectible, that's what the insurance is. So typical bad faith case is where an insurance company fails to tender their policy limits in a timely manner. Maybe they're like nickel and diming the claim. Maybe you say, I want $10,000, and they're like, I think your claim is only worth $2,500, right? Or they just kind of drop the ball. Other ways that they arise, and usually where the legal malpractice claims come in, that's where there's a condition to the settlement. So I'll take the $10,000, but I'm only going to release your insured. I'm not going to release the insurance company that maybe owes me money for property damage. Maybe I have another policy with them with PIP or with UM, and I'm not releasing the insurance company. I don't have claims against them. I have claims against the driver, right? Or I'll release the driver, but not their employer. So that's where the lawyers sometimes get involved, and their job is to make sure that the release complies with the conditions of the demand.
The lawyer hired by the insurance company to protect the insured. So you go after those lawyers. I just had a case. It wasn't my claim, but it was a 1020, and the other law firm representing the other person, they wanted the $10,000 plus a $500 contribution from the at-fault driver, even though they had 10K in coverage, they said, give us $500. The damages were significant for that person who they were representing.
Yeah.
And so if that lawyer that was hired by the insurance company to protect the insured, if they didn't tell that person about the $500, that's something where you can get involved or no?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's actually a claim against both the insurance company and the lawyer, because part of the good faith duties that insurers have to their insureds is not just to advise them of all settlement offers, but also give them, advise them of reasonable steps they can take to avoid an excess judgment. So paying that $500, that's a reasonable step to avoid an excess judgment.
Okay.
And a lot of times, I actually had a case a couple of years ago that went to trial, and we represented the injured claimant, okay?
This was the bad faith portion or the
bad faith
original?
Portion.
Okay.
We represented the injured claimant, and the insurance company basically nickel and dime this woman's claim for like 4 years. And on the statute of limitations, like the eve of it, her lawyer wrote and was like, we'll take your $50,000 policy limits, but like you have to tender them. Actually, was it 50? Yeah, it was $50,000. And on the eve of that statute of limitations, the insurance company was like, we'll give you 25. And so we got the insured. She was living, this is years later, she was like living out in Colorado. We fly her down to Orlando for trial. And she talks about like, my life has been devastated. It was a $1.8 million judgment against her. She's like, my credit's ruined. I can't take loans. I'm like, I haven't been able to move on with my life. And like, if the insurance company told you, like, look, they want $50,000. We're only willing to offer 25. Will you pitch in the 25? What would you do? And she's like, I would have done it. I would have called my mom. I would have called my employer. I would have taken a loan. I would have done whatever I needed to do.
Yeah.
So that was very compelling evidence, I think, at trial, aside from all the other evidence that we had against the insurance company. But when someone's asking for a personal contribution, the insurance company has an obligation to tell the insured that that's on the table and that they can make that personal contribution as a, and get released. And the lawyer has a fiduciary duty to their client to do the same. Another example, I had a case really recently, actually. It was after HB 837.
Okay.
It was a tort case. The tort case had been pending for a few years, so HB 837 didn't apply. Although I had a defense lawyer telling me, you don't have a bad faith case, it's been extinguished with HB 837, whatever. And so when that lawyer was like pounding his fist on the table, he canceled my extra contractual mediation. So we were set to go to mediation to see if we could settle above the policy limits. And this guy emails the morning of, he tells us and the mediator, I'm canceling the mediation. Your bad faith case has been extinguished. It was the Monday after the governor signed the bill.
And he didn't tell his client or ask his client for permission.
Correct. And turns out...
And he didn't know who he was messing with.
Right.
I love it.
So it turns out the insured had scraped together a nominal amount, but enough to, like, something to personally contribute. And meanwhile, my client found that very meaningful from, like, a personal level. Like, the fact that the insured was coming to the table and saying, I am so sorry for what happened to you. The most I've got is whatever, a couple of $1,000s. Maybe it would have, made a difference that day. But the insurance company just canceled it outright without asking anybody.
Right.
But that case settled, and it was not a confidential settlement, and it settled for like, I think like 100 times the policy limits or something. So
oh my gosh. Now you know why every time I see you, I'm like, whoa. Wow. Yeah. That's incredible. Wow. Wow, that's awesome. I had a question for you. It was in my head and it just flew away. You said you do insurance coverage and bad faith. What is insurance coverage to you? Because I'm a little bit blank on it.
Yep.
What is that?
So insurance coverage is where there's an actual coverage dispute. Like the insurance company is saying, we don't cover this claim because of a policy condition or a policy term. So this comes up a lot. I mean, it comes up in car accident cases for sure. But let's say it comes up, somebody's injured on a job site.
A building collapse?
Like
dog bites?
Yeah, exactly.
certain
Dog
breeds.
bites, you know, most homeowner policies have an animal exclusion, so they might assert that.
Okay.
You know, there's all sorts of exclusions in every single policy, you know, the quote unquote fine print. So sometimes there's a coverage dispute related to one of those terms.
Okay.
Sometimes the dispute is just as simple as like, is this person an insured? Right?
Okay.
Is he an employee of a corporate policy holder? Is he not an employee? That kind of thing. So that's where the coverage disputes come in.
Okay. So I'm a lawyer. I'm watching this. I'm saying, okay, insurance coverage. So I have a case. I have big damages. Insurance company says, we don't cover this because that's when they should call you and say, hey, let me look at that. Let me make sure.
Yes.
I think it's ambiguous or it wasn't clear or they're crazy. Okay. So that's when, okay. Because I've had cases like that and I'm reading the policy and I go, I don't think so. And I'm arguing with them, and then I'm realizing I should probably just call you and have you argue with them and take over the case but there's got to be damages, right? You don't get involved in smaller cases, or it depends on the case.
It depends,
okay.
yeah. I mean, look, if it's you know, first of all, I have competitors that they don't get out of bed if it's not a $10 million case, right? Like if it's not 8 figures, I'm not calling you back. I'm not like that. If I'm going to ask you for your $10 million case, I'm going to take your $100,000 case, right?
Okay.
With coverage, it's a little bit different. You know, sometimes I do get paid on a contingency, and I work that out with the client.
Okay.
But other times, there are a lot of attorneys that hire me on an hourly basis just to do a coverage review. So I'm almost like working like an expert for them.
Okay.
Also, like sometimes the answer is really easy. So sometimes I can just look at the policy and on the phone with you just say, yeah, that's bullshit. There's coverage here, right?
Love it.
So it just depends on the case.
Okay.
Now, one of like the big cottage industries for insurance defense lawyers is to file declaratory judgment actions. They do that because they figure the insured is not going to have money to hire a lawyer.
On material misrep cases?
Everything, not just material misrep. I have deck actions because, you know, on a trucking policy, the driver wasn't listed in time or the car doesn't fall within code.
You're talking about
like
Granada Insurance.
Yeah,
they're such a piece of shit insurance company. Like they make United Auto look like they have ethics, right? You know, every single Granada case I've had, it goes to one law firm. I don't want to mention the name because I don't think it's important.
We know which one it is. Yep.
And they always call me and they tell me, look, we're not going to pay anything on this case, but if you want us to cover the property damage for this poor person who the $3,000 car that they have is the most expensive thing they'll ever own in their life, we'll pay the $3,000. And I'm like, what? And it's always, you know what it is? I had a case with them where the policy was the application, it said that they were based out of Fort Myers, but they were really based out of Miami, and their website and everything was Miami. So the deck actions. So you represent the insured when the insurance company sues them, which happens really. That's like the worst thing you could. You hire a company to represent you, to protect you, and then when there's a claim, they sue you to say, hey, we don't want to help this person because, right? Is it wild?
Yeah, and they also sue the injured party. So it's like your client is like dealing with their injuries. They're dealing with all of these other things. And then it's like insult to injury, right? To get sued like that. So I handle a lot of deck actions. And I will say, I think they're becoming more and more common because of, you know, there's definitely a big player in that but I'm seeing a lot of deck actions. I had a deck action filed the other day against my client for a declaration that the insurance company did not act in bad faith.
Oh,
yeah.
Those aren't always, well, I guess if they get service on everybody, because I know in the PIP context, if they don't get if there's an assignment of benefits from a doctor, they've got to include that doctor. Otherwise, I mean, we've argued that it's invalid. Is that clear cut?
There's, I mean, I think there's pretty good case law in federal court, at least, that if you don't join the claimant as well, then they're not bound by the determination in the deck action.
Yeah, because
so typically everybody gets sued because of that. You know, to some extent, the claimant's rights are derivative of the insured's, but there's a case not that long ago that stood for that said the claimant can still challenge the coverage denial. So, but these are, you know, that's pretty typical is like those deck actions. Material misreps, that's a big issue that comes up a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if anybody's watching this, if you purchase an insurance company that starts with or includes the general, forget about your claim being covered and expect to get sued as well. They do that a lot.
Yeah.
So that's insurance coverage. And the bad faith, they had this House Bill 837. There's this 90-day rule. Can you explain in layman's terms, an easy way for somebody like myself? What is this 90-day rule? What is this sufficient evidence? What is that? And what are your thoughts on what is sufficient evidence, if you can?
I mean, that's $1 million question,
Okay.
right?
Okay.
So that's part of what I presented on today was like top 10 do's and don'ts, right?
Okay.
And I focused a lot on those changes because now, after HB 837, the insurance company basically gets immunity. They have a safe harbor if they tender the policy limits within 90 days of notice of the claim and sufficient evidence of the value of the claim.
Okay.
So that's when the clock starts for the 90 days. So basically the insurance company could do everything wrong. They can just, every letter you write them, they can just tear it up and throw it in the garbage. As long as on day 89, they send you a check, they're good. They've got a get out of jail free card. Their insured might still have to pay an excess judgment, but they don't have any bad faith liability.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And that's something that I kept trying to explain to the legislators in Tallahassee. And I'm like, you understand that this is so bad for small businesses in Florida. I mean, this is devastating to small businesses.
Because they could be on the hook.
Yeah, and they will be on the hook because if you're injured, you have an injury client, and you have a collectible insured, you're going to go after that collectible insured, right?
That business,
And you have to, like, that's your duty to your client, right? Your duty to your clients to do what's in their best interest. And in the meantime, the insurance company, who also had a fiduciary duty, they're just getting away scot-free because they sat on their hands, but on day 89 they tendered. So the $1 million question is, what's the sufficient evidence of the amount of the claim? My advice to lawyers before HB 837 is the same as it is after. And that's because bad faith is failure to settle when you could and should have done so had you acted fairly and honestly with due regard for the interests of the insured. So the two questions of could we have settled or should we have settled is what's going to be presented to the jury, right?
Okay.
So if you want to prove that the insurance company should have settled your client's claim for the policy limits, then you should tell the insurance company why. You should present them with evidence, whether it's medical bills, medical records, photographs. You should be responsive to the insurance company's request. You should give them what they need, and you shouldn't ignore what they're asking for. A lot of times people say, well, my client is like in a coma in the hospital, like intubated. What else do they need to know? Well, they don't need to take your word for it. So you might not have medical records. Your client's in a coma, so maybe you're still setting up the personal representative, power of attorney, all of those things. That's fine. Snap a photo, email it to the adjuster. They've got sufficient evidence of the value of the claim because
snap a photo of the person in the coma?
Of the person in the hospital,
okay,
yeah.
Gotcha.
I mean, that's like the easiest thing you can do, right?
Okay.
So if you don't have medical records and bills yet, then just tell the insurance company, like, these are my client's injuries. They had like an emergency surgery. They were rushed to the hospital from the scene. Here's the police report showing that they were transported by EMS, and and we're waiting on records or whatever it is. But that should trigger that 90 days depending on the limits. If you have low limits, there's a pretty low bar to what sufficient evidence is going to be, right? Like if you've got a $10,000 policy and somebody went to the hospital and the injury check mark on the police report is incapacitating, you've got sufficient evidence there. But if you've got $1 million policy, you probably need more to start that clock. So you should try to give the insurance company everything that they need. That they're going to get it anyway, right? They're going to get it in discovery.
Yeah.
And if they get it in discovery and then they say, well, Abe had this in his file the whole time and just didn't send it to us, then that's not a good look. And one of the changes in the statute was not only the safe harbor, but there's also comparative bad faith. So a jury can now reduce your bad faith verdict if they find that you breached a brand new good faith duty that you now have to the insurance company.
I have a duty to the insurance company?
Yes,
oh my
you
gosh.
do. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
I didn't know that. I work for them.
You work for them. Who know? Yeah. I
Wow.
mean, if you have any question about who wrote this bill, I think we know.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So let me, I do want to bring up one good point. Your efforts, the FJA efforts, there was a lot of people there. I don't want to leave anybody out, but there was a lot of people. Originally this bill said something like there's no. What was the original version of the bill about bad faith? Do you remember? Because it wasn't 90 days. It was 180 days after a lawsuit was filed, something like that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. It was after something like the insurance company has been served, and we're like, well, you would never serve them because they're not being sued. You're suing their insured.
Yeah.
There was all sorts of weird language. There was also language tossed around about having a civil remedy notice as a requirement. The timeline was definitely longer, and you're right. There were some like Brent Steinberg, Dale Swope, these are like my competitors, but they were up there pounding the pavement too. Fred's office was up there, and it was all hands on deck. I mean, I will say, like, FJA did an incredible job. We were very unified in talking to the legislators. Everybody had everybody on speed dial trying to get better language. And as bad as this is, it could have been so much worse.
Yeah, and not just for lawyers, right, but for the consumers who, that guy, I keep talking about him, Gary Miracle. I mean, his thing was, when he went up there and he spoke, I mean, he was like, look at me. He had prosthetics, right? And he was very powerful.
Well, he didn't. I don't even think he had his arm on when
maybe
he
didn't.
He was testifying. But yeah,
he had his arms and his legs amputated.
Yeah.
So he was up there. I think he had the prosthetics on the legs. Something, I don't know. It was so beautiful what he did, because he said, I'm not here about me. I'm here for the next guy who has to live with my injuries and can't get any money because you guys want to do a favor for the insurance company. And I was like, wow, there was a couple of people that did that. There was a young lady with a brain injury. She goes, can I get extra time?
And they cut her
off. They cut her off. I was like, how callous. She said, I have a brain injury. And she was young, she was beautiful, and she's like, I have a brain injury, can you give me an extra minute out of the 2 minutes I get? And they go, no. And I was shocked. And that was impactful to show you what these guys were doing. And there's just, it's crazy, it's pretty wild.
At the end of the day, these reforms were really bad for Floridians. I mean, this is not about the lawyers, because lawyers, we're going to make money somehow, right? You don't go to law school and like specialize in one thing. You don't only know how to do one thing. We're adaptable. We're we're here to, vindicate our clients' rights, and whatever those rights are, we're going to find a way to do it, right? But ultimately, this is about regular Floridians who are never going to be made anywhere near whole anymore for their injuries because of some of the other reforms, like caps on medical damages, having a criminal on the verdict form in negligent security cases, giving all sorts of immunities to different industries, and ultimately it was an insurance industry bailout. The one thing I was trying to get across when I was testifying is I don't just represent injury victims. I do represent a lot of injury victims, and that is one of the best parts of my practice. But I also represent a lot of corporate policyholders, a lot of small businesses that have employees here in the state of Florida. My firm represents one of the largest roofing companies in the state of Florida. These are these are businesses that are mom and pops that built themselves on and provide jobs for people to put food on their families' tables. And those jobs and those businesses are also at jeopardy. Because none of these immunities apply to them. These immunities apply to the insurance company.
Right.
So the insurance company gets away with bad faith. They can abandon their insured. They can fail to fulfill their fiduciary duties. They can not protect their insured and just, do things that are just ultimately self-serving and get away with it, but their insured is left holding the bag.
Yeah.
And that's just, that's bad for Florida.
Yeah, no, I agree. So tell me a little bit about maybe a case that you've had that you can talk about where it had a big impact on you or for your client.
Yeah, so ultimately every case is impactful, right? Like when you're representing an individual client, they're relying on you to change their life, right? They're always in a bad place, and you're kind of like there to help them. So, I'll give you an example. A recent case. We got involved early on in the case, so the tort case was still pending. Our client was in a really bad rollover accident. She was driving the car with her 2 kids in the back. Her husband was driving in his car right behind them. Car was going in the wrong direction. Driver was high on heroin, okay? Crashed into her, or she swerved, rolled over multiple times, and her husband is watching all of this happen, okay? Oh. The kids were miraculously okay. They had some injuries, nothing mostly like psychological type injuries, having to relive that kind of thing. And she had pretty significant injuries. She ultimately underwent a surgery for, I think it was her cervical spine. She was recommended for another surgery. She had issues with I think it was her ankle and her shoulder. I mean, she had a lot of physical injuries, but she also received a pretty severe diagnosis for PTSD. Okay. And this was a woman who was at the height of her career. She was very, very successful, C-suite level successful. Oh, wow. And her job, even though she was still successful, she wasn't able to focus on her day-to-day. She was passed over for promotions. She had to take time off. I mean, it was really devastating for her life, you know? And this was a documented diagnosis. I mean, she went for treatment. She tried everything she could. She also had a traumatic brain injury from the accident as well. Wow. So that was all in combination. She just was really having a hard time. Like I said, we got involved in the tort case. The policy limits were $100,000. Okay, it was 100, 300. The kids' claim settled within the policy limits, and the only claim that was remaining was hers. And so she asked for the $100,000. And I mean, she didn't just ask for it. It was over and over again, sending, hundreds of pages of medical records, including all her psychiatric records, everything. I mean, this woman put her whole life out there for the insurance company, and they just refused to tender the policy limits.
Did they say why?
Yeah, they. So this is where This I'm trying to think if this reveals mediation privilege, but I'll just say this: at one point, the defense's argument was, you are putting your law case over your life case. Basically insinuating that this woman was willing to ruin her career to try to pull one over on the insurance company for $100,000, which is so offensive. And I remember talking to the defense lawyer, and I was like, I just want to let you know, on behalf of my client, this is so offensive. And I promise you, you will pay for that statement. That is so offensive, you know? And I could relate to this woman, I'm also a working mother and, trying to climb the corporate ladder, so to speak, right? And to insinuate that she would manufacture injuries,
get a surgery
for $100,000. It's a joke, Right. And they were saying your psychological records and history is all out there now because you put it out there. And it's no, it wouldn't be out there if you just paid, right? She wouldn't have even filed a lawsuit if you just paid.
Right.
So anyway, her lawyers went out and they got a $5 million verdict.
Wow. That was in the underlying case, and then you got involved in the bad faith portion.
Yeah, so I got involved actually before they even went to trial.
Okay.
And, we were pushing the carrier to settle, and they weren't settling. They went to trial. I think it was a $3.8 million compensatory verdict, $1 million punitive damages, and then $1 million attorney's fees.
Was this against a person
Yes.
or a business?
It was against a person.
Okay.
He was high on heroin at the time of the accident.
Oh, right.
And he, you know, to his credit, I had met him and he was pretty much like, you know, upset about what happened. But the thing is, when you have insurance and the insurance company is defending you, they are in control of all settlement decisions. And so, and like that lawyer that's supposed to be representing you, they're being paid by the insurance company to do the insurance company's bidding. I cannot imagine that this guy would have been okay with his lawyer saying you're putting your law case over your life case, right? I mean, I think he genuinely felt bad for our client, and you know, the lawyers sometimes just, they're a little too zealous, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, you know, the thing is, the insurance companies, I noticed this with, an easy example is an IME doctor, an independent medical exam doctor. They won't get hired again if they don't do what the insurance company wants. And unfortunately, you know, lawyers have an ethical obligation too, right?
Yeah.
But I can guarantee you that defense lawyer didn't write 1,000 letters. They didn't do this. They didn't write 1,000 letters to the carrier saying, "Hey, I really think we should settle this case for the policy limits. Why aren't we doing this?" And it's crazy to me. You know, it's interesting. United Auto sued in the West, like I think it was in Utah or Colorado or somewhere out there. They sued a defense lawyer who was representing them for not notifying them in writing that they should have settled within the policy limits.
Yeah.
They sued him for that, and then got a malpractice case against their own lawyer, which is uncommon in the state of Florida, right? Insurance companies don't do that here.
There was a case like that. It's I think it's USAA versus Kubicki Draper.
Oh.
Where the I don't remember exactly the details of what the legal malpractice claim was.
Okay.
But the carrier sued the appointed defense counsel, and you know, the procedural posture is a little fuzzy, but the ultimate outcome from the appellate court was that they have standing to do that.
Okay.
They have standing to sue. So, and listen, that happens. And you know, I'm in a weird kind of like unique position because I'm not like a pure plaintiff's lawyer, right? I represent injured victims and I work with the plaintiff's lawyers and I treat those lawyers as my clients.
Right.
But I also have, you know, a working relationship with a lot of defense lawyers. And a lot of times they tell me behind the scenes, like, I'm going to CYA and I'm going to write a letter to the carrier and tell them like they need to tender because this isn't coming back on me, right? In a bad faith case, we get those files. We get the insurance company's claim file. If we either represent the insured or get an assignment of rights from them, we get their entire defense lawyer's file.
Oh, wow.
And those files are a gold mine. I mean, you get these litigation updates that the defense lawyers are sending the insurance companies, and they're always like, yeah, liability is bad. Like, we've got maybe like a 30% chance of prevailing, if that. And the jury verdicts in this jurisdiction are like 1.5 to 3.5 million. You know,
even higher when you're on the case.
But yeah, we see all that, and it's funny you said, you know, that the CME and IME doctors, if they don't do, you know, if they don't do what the insurance company says, they don't get hired again. I had a case a couple of years ago where, you know, they get a report from a radiologist, and it says like this is traumatically induced, this injury. And then the adjuster writes back to the defense lawyer, get a reread from Dr. So-and-so.
Oh, my gosh. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's wild. So what's the biggest dollar value that you've obtained in a verdict that you can talk about?
Okay, so in a verdict is different than in a settlement, right?
Right.
I'll tell you, okay, so I have a case right now. It's actually a coverage case. It will be a bad faith case where the underlying verdict is $66 million. I have...
Whoa, 66 million?
Yeah.
Wow.
That case is still pending. That's a fun case.
Wow. I bet you have plenty of time to work on that case for $66 million verdict. Oh, my gosh. Wow.
I have another case that we have a confidential settlement. That was a very, very important case to me because the family was just so incredible. And that was a $52 million verdict.
Okay.
And
wow.
obviously I can't disclose what the settlement value was, but that was a large, large verdict case.
Yeah.
I have other cases where there hasn't been like a liquidation of damages yet, but I recently had like a really horrific case that, you know, I ran into one of the insurance lawyers involved that I didn't even know were involved because there were like a bunch of layers of excess insurance.
Oh.
And I was like, I think that would have been $100 million case if we hadn't settled. And he's like, yeah, that would have been.
Wow.
So there are, you know, there's some big, you know, big ticket cases. I know my law partners have also like, he's got one case that's somewhere around like $60 million that's currently being actively litigated.
Oh, wow.
And that case is actually an agent liability case.
The insurance agent?
Yeah, the insurance
okay.
agent. So yeah, we've got a bunch of cases that are, you know, well into the 8 figures, especially post-COVID. Those jury verdicts are really high. The $52 million case I told you about, that's the Aldana versus Progressive case. It's a really well-known case because we got a good order from the 11th Circuit Court of Appeal on that case. It was a multi-claimant car accident case. And at the time, it was Irvin Gonzalez's last jury trial.
Oh, that was sad.
Yeah, and it was the largest verdict in Ocala.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was the underlying case before, you know, we filed the bad faith lawsuit against Progressive. But that family was just, I mean, they were like the definition of what family is, right? Like their children were catastrophically injured and like some worse than others. It was a mother and her 4 children in the car. And they really, like, you would sit down and talk to them and it was as if like, you know, not that nothing happened, but they just had such a bright and like positive outlook on life. And they just had such a, you know, they didn't let this accident just end their lives. You know, they were really like an inspiring family to work with. And it was really satisfying to get them a good resolution.
Wow, that's awesome. So you're an amazing lawyer. We know this. Amazing speaker. I saw you speak at the House Bill stuff, and I was so impressed. You also are a mother to 2 young children, 2 and 4?
Yep, almost 2, almost 4. They've got their birthdays are 1 day apart, which is
wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so can I just ask, because there's probably a lot of women out here who are like, wow, she's a badass. How do you balance being this successful lawyer who brings in multi-million-dollar results with, like, I got 2 kids and they're growing up and they're young and they need me. You know, they're not teenagers who don't want to be around you right now. I don't know. I don't want to ask for advice, but like, you know, like how do you balance that? Cause it is, being a lawyer for me is incredibly hard. I'm lucky that my wife is there to help with the 2 kids. I think I told you earlier, I wanted them to come up here, but she's going to pay for this. I'm doing this on every podcast. She's paying for this. I wanted her to be up here, but she said, oh, you know, we don't want to be there while you're working all day and this and that. And I get that, but I'd like to see him at night and maybe for breakfast. But anyways, watching. You're here with your kids, which is amazing. And that's really cool. How do you do it? I don't know a better way to ask.
Yeah. So
do you sleep?
So I don't sleep. I mean, that's number 1, which is not a good thing. That's not so, you know, like there's like, I call it like work porn when people like post on Facebook, like, oh, like burning the midnight oil, like at the office at midnight. Like, I don't like that. I don't think it's good to glorify like working late hours, working nonstop. But if I'm honest, I do. I work late hours. I work nonstop. It's not like a good thing. You know, I don't think I'd have to work if I could find the answer to what balance was, right? Like, I think that people would pay a lot of money to know that answer.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there's ever a balance. But I don't think that's like necessarily unique to being a working mom. I think like as a working dad, you probably also have, you know, struggle to find a balance, right?
Yeah.
But
tell me. My wife's like, you need to be home by 5. If you're not home by 5, you know, this and that, and you got to pick up the kids at 4. They're going to be left at school. I will tell you, there's been a couple instances where my kids were at school and I was at the office, and they were like, my wife's calling me, and I forgot to pick up the kids. Oh yeah, it's happened a lot. Yeah.
No, there's definitely been like some times when I'm like, oh, parent fail, like whoops.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it is challenge for sure. One thing I do is, and I give my husband credit for that. You know him.
He's an amazing guy. He's awesome. Yeah.
One thing that he always encourages me to do is to incorporate my kids in my work.
Oh,
so
okay.
like, I think it was like 2 weeks ago, there was one of those like teacher curriculum day things that they do, like it seems almost every week at the kids' school. And so like my 4-year-old, she didn't have school that day. So she always asks to come to work with me. So I was like, okay, Friday, you don't have school, you're coming to work with me. And I took her to work with me the whole day. I had a Zoom hearing. I had and then we went out for lunch. And I actually brought one of her friends with us because we carpool with them and she was available. So, I try to incorporate them. I bring them to conferences. If they can see me speak, I have, whether it's my husband or my nanny, bring them in to get a glimpse of me. I want them to kind of understand a little bit about what I do. You always want your kids to look up to you, and I don't want them to think that I'm doing something, I'm away from them and I'm not doing it for for a cause, for something that I want them to also look up to me eventually,
Yeah.
I think that's every parent's hope, right?
Right.
So, I definitely try to incorporate them, but it takes a village. At the end of the day, it takes a village. We have an amazing nanny who travels with me a lot when I am going to conferences. If I have a work trip somewhere, let's say I'm going to take depositions somewhere, sometimes I'll have them meet me if it's in a nice place that I think that we'll be able to go on vacation or something.
Okay.
So I really try to incorporate them. I try to be home every single night for dinner, play with them a little bit, bath time, bedtime. I do bedtime. I try to do it every single night.
Wow.
I remember the first time I missed bedtime for my oldest, and it was devastating for me,
Yeah, I intentionally, and my wife can attest to this, I intentionally miss bedtime. I'm like, babe, I'm so tired. Can you help me? Because I get really frustrated with bedtime because my kids, I just saw this funny meme. It was, I look at my kid, I say goodnight, I smile, they smile, we both laugh because we know in 30 minutes they're going to be in my room saying, Mommy, Daddy, can you come lay in bed with me or something? And that's my daughter. She does that all the time. And it's funny, you mentioned your daughter wanted to go to work with you or going to work with you.
Yeah.
My daughter always says, Dad, I want to go to work with you and I want to have a clipboard. She wants to have a clipboard. Because when she was really young, I told her, if you walk around with a clipboard, people will think you're the boss.
Oh, I love that.
So I keep trying to push her to be a lawyer.
Yeah.
Because she's by default a lawyer. Everything she does she's a plaintiff's lawyer. 100%. She's just like me. She won't admit it. She's like, Dad, I want to be an artist. I say, you can be an artist and a lawyer. I say, go to art school and then get your law degree and then go do art. I don't care. But I want her to be a lawyer because it's I need someone to come to work with me. I keep telling my kids, I'm like, you can guys come to work with me. We can go to lunch. We can go to happy hour. They don't know what happy hour is yet. We can go to happy hour. We can hang out all day.
Love that.
Because I really do love work. But that's awesome you bring your kids. So you bring them to the office or you work from home those days?
No, I bring them to the office.
Wow.
I actually rarely work from home. I'm pretty much in the office every day unless I'm traveling for work, I'm not I don't love working from home. And also I had my kids during the pandemic. My first daughter was born in May of 2020.
Oh,
so it was right, at the height of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So we were home, and it was I was sitting in my office at home, and I would hear all of the first things that I was missing, right?
Oh, okay.
And so I'm like, ugh, it's right on the other side of this door, she's probably taking her first steps, and I'm missing it, right? And that was really hard for me.
But you were there. I was at the office, I was on a road trip or something. You were there.
No, it was hard. So, I'd rather just be at the office than not here and not there.
Yeah.
I'm kind of in this limbo. Yeah. So I went back in person pretty soon after the pandemic.
Cool. Yeah, I refuse to work from home. I hate working from home. If you work from home, sometimes, even probably as any lawyer, you're working all day and night because there's no, all right, I got to get home. Mm-hmm. So you're just there. Mm-hmm. And then, so I don't like that unless I can't sleep at night, and then I'll work. And people will get emails from me at 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and they're like, this guy's weird. He's emailing me about some stupid, minuscule well, to them it's minuscule. To the client, it's important.
Right.
But to them, it's minuscule. They're like, why is he emailing me about this 10K BI policy or PIP suit or whatever it is, you know? So yeah, I mean, I love being a lawyer. I know you love being a lawyer. But it's just finding the right thing, which is, you know, like you said, being at home on time for dinner, helping out with bedtime and bringing them when you can, which is what I tried doing, Katie. It's what I tried doing.
And one other tip.
Yeah.
When you're with your kids, to be present. So when I come home, I try not, like, unless I have a call scheduled that, like, I absolutely have to take, I leave my phone in my bag outside of the front door. I don't even bring it in the house.
Yeah.
Because that way I'm not on my phone. They're not, because before I was bringing my phone, and then of course I'm going to be checking emails, and then that stresses me out. It's like, oh, I forgot to do this. I have to get back. It's like at 7 o'clock at night, it doesn't matter, right? Like if it waits till 9 o'clock after they go to sleep, is anything going to happen? If it waits till tomorrow morning when I get to the office, is anything going to change? No. Yeah. So I try to like leave my phone out of it.
That's smart. I made the mistake of telling my daughter, who's 9 now, when your kids are older, you could do this. I told her at 5 o'clock, it's not daddy's phone anymore. It's your phone. And at 5 o'clock, she grabs the phone. If I'm not home, if I'm home, she'll grab the phone and she'll be like, it's my phone now. And she'll go hide it under one of the seat cushions or something, which is so frustrating because she'll never tell, like she'll go to bed and then I won't know where it is. But she does that to me. And I'm like, this is crazy. But she takes the phone from me at 5 o'clock. Yeah, and the weekends to me are like precious. Yeah. I really, on the weekends, you can't even get a hold of me. I have it, my phone, I don't take it. My wife goes, we're going to the beach. I'm like, all right, let's go. I don't take my phone with me because on Saturday and Sunday, like give me 2 days a week where I don't do any work because I work all just like you do. But Saturdays and Sundays, I try to just carve that out unless there's a work conference or something on the weekends. But yeah, awesome. What do you like to do for fun? If you could do anything, what is it that you'd want to do?
So, I mean, like, I feel like I used to have a lot more hobbies than I do now. I love traveling, though. And that's something that I still do. And everybody thinks that we're crazy because we take our kids, like, to Europe. We take them, we're always on the go. Like, the next month is, like, a busy time. We're going to go. We're here in Orlando. Next week, we're going skiing. Then we come back, we're going to go to D.C., then we're going to go to Amsterdam for a week. I mean, we're just like, go if we can. Like,
with
we
kids.
have with kids. Yeah.
Okay.
So
young kids, traveling with young kids sucks as a dad because I have to carry everyone's luggage.
That's the worst.
They all overpack. And
and the car seats and like all the stuff. I know, that's the worst part. But so I love traveling. I love like active traveling. So like hiking. My husband and I, we like climbed Mount Rainier a couple years ago.
Where's that at?
It's in Washington State.
Oh, okay. Wow.
Yeah, okay. It's 14,000 feet up, almost 15,000 feet up.
Do you hike it or you climb it?
It was a 4-day climb. So we were sleeping on a glacier. We had to like carve out like the ice to make it flat to sleep on it. We were with a group, obviously, because like otherwise I wouldn't be here talking to you. I would have fallen into a crevasse. But it was like really, really wild. So I love that kind of like, nature. Yeah, like all of that. I used to do triathlons. I used to be a distance runner. Wow. I haven't done that for years, but I like that kind of like like testing your physical and mental limits and now I kind of take it easy and I kind of like look around and smell the roses and that's really nice. And to be able to like integrate my kids in that is also really nice.
Cool. That's awesome. I'm doing a Spartan race soon.
Oh, awesome.
On April 20th of all days. And I'm trying to get a little bit more in shape. I've been doing Hue Fitness, HEW Fitness, which is like a CrossFit. It's really fun. I recommend it to anybody watching. It's a fun CrossFit type of workout thing. And I'm going to do the Spartan. I did 5Ks when I was younger, and then now here I am again trying to do one. So we'll see. It's like a 5K with obstacle in it.
Yeah, so I did one like years ago. I did 2 of them actually. They used to have it was like the Super Spartan. It was 13 miles with the obstacles. Yeah, that was back. That was like a good like 10 years ago.
Wow,
So
that's incredible.
I don't think I would last even through the first obstacle if I had
Yeah.
to try it today.
13 miles is a half marathon,
It's
right?
a half marathon.
And did they have it with obstacles?
Yeah. Yeah.
See, now
We,
you
like
know.
swam through mud pits and stuff.
Now
and
you know
like,
why I'm over here saying you're a badass is because it's like I'm still shocked and amazed every time. I'm like, what? Everything you tell me is crazy. Wow, that's awesome. So, where'd you go to law school?
Georgetown, DC.
And where were you from before you went to law school?
So I was born in Israel, but I
okay.
grew up in New York. I moved
Okay.
to New York when I was a baby. I was like 3 years old. So
What part?
Long Island.
Oh, okay. Okay, cool.
I lost the accent over the years.
Yeah.
Except when I talk to someone else from Long Island, and then it comes out.
Yeah.
And then
Wolfie.
exactly. And then I went to undergraduate at George Washington University in DC.
Okay.
And then law school. And then when I graduated, I moved to Miami.
Any reason?
I came here to be a public defender. So I
Oh.
moved here for the crime.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you were a public defender how long?
4.5 years.
And then straight to what you did now?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's awesome. And you were a public defender down in Dade County.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. Cool. So if people want to get a hold of you, how can they get a hold of you? Give us your name of your firm, your website, phone number, whatever you want to share. Thank you.
Okay. So my firm is Verplu and Marino. And my email is mmailer@vpm-legal.com. So my first initial and last name at vpm-legal.com. And you can always call me as well. My office line is on the website. It's 305-577-3996. Or you can ask Abe, and he'll give you my cell phone number.
100%. 100%. And we'll put all this up in the platform too so people can get a hold of you. Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah,
I'm
thank
like,
you.
I got to call Roy up and be like, bro, you didn't even tell me half of how amazing, because he always calls me. He's like, dude, she's so amazing. And I'm like, yeah. So anyways, thank you so much for being here. Really a
Thank
pleasure.
you.
Thank you.